What's inspiring you lately?
Your interview face. No.
By the way, we always have this thing when we laugh at each other because whenever I have my nice person face when I meet someone. Hello. Oh, hi.
On this episode of Creator to Creator, what happens when ambition meets a friendship that refuses to let you settle? From the hit shows Outlander and Pluribus, this is Katrina Balfe to Carolina Widra.
Hello, I'm Katrina Balfe, and I am here with Carolina Widra, who is an amazing actress, one of my best friends, if not my best friend. Carolina is a Polish-born actor, and she is starring right now as Zosia on the incredible Pluribus by Vince Gilligan on Apple TV.
Thanks, babe.
She's also known for Violet and True Blood, Carolina and Sneaky Pete, Dominika Petrova on House, and Agent 33 on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And her film work also includes Incarnate and Crazy Stupid Love.
Aww.
And it's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, you too, babe. And I would like to introduce you, my best friend, Katrina Balfe. You're magic, and I'm so grateful that I get to do this with you. And so you're Irish, you're a producer, you're a director. You're best known for Claire Fraser on Outlander. You are a 5-time Golden Globe nominee, which is pretty incredible. And your film work is Money Monster. I remember that. You're so great in that. So good. Belfast. And you also have an upcoming film, is Sense and Sensibility. And I'm happy to be here with you. You know, looking back on it, what did modeling give you? What did you love about it? Were there things that you missed about it?
I can't say that there are things that I necessarily miss about being in that industry. It's funny, when I look back on it, it was such a, whirlwind of a time in a way, even though I ended up modeling for pretty much a decade. Mm-hmm. But when you look back and you sort of see the different stages of your life, I had gone to drama school. I was right out of leaving.
You did the drama school before you started modeling, right?
Yes. So
in Ireland.
I was in Ireland. I had gone to drama school. I was in my first year of drama school. I was not showing up, I would say, to the best of my abilities.
You mean to class, or just like when you got it?
In all aspects. I think I was just really immature, and it was the first time I was living outside of home. I had very strict parents. I was like in Dublin, and I was like, freedom. I don't have to do, I don't have to do what anybody tells me.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I did not have the maturity to be an actor, and I don't think I had the life experience. So
that's so fascinating that you don't think you had the maturity to be an actor. I want to know more about that. But go ahead.
So when I was presented with this sort of idea to model, I think the greatest thing it gave me was an education. And I know it's strange because sometimes one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't finish college and I didn't have all that time to sort of read the plays and do all of that kind of stuff. But as in a life experience, I think modeling gave me so much. I mean, it took stuff from me too, but I definitely think it gave me that.
Yeah.
How about you? How did you start?
I was discovered in the mall. When I was 15.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, it's such a crazy story because I was with my dad and they thought my dad was my boyfriend, which I think it's so absurd and awful and disgusting. But anyway, I was put into elite models. Then I went to Japan when I was 15.
Oh my God.
I was 16 or something, yeah. And I went there for 3 months.
I didn't realize you'd left home so
early. Yeah, it was super early. It was exciting and also terrifying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you just had all this freedom and you can get into trouble so easily. And that's what all the models did, kind of, when you're away from your parents. When I look back on that time, the crazy bit is that I'm a bit sad that I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That I didn't have more joy in the travel, like going to all the wonderful places, all the, staying at these incredible hotels and going to, I remember going to like these islands in the Caribbean that I haven't been there since, you know, and it's a tough industry as far as, like, for me, it was a tough industry on the way I saw myself as a woman.
So how,
Right, meaning like you're surrounded by so many women, right? And I remember people used to say to me all the time, "Well, you must feel beautiful. You're a model," and you go, "Well, that's just not how I
No,
feel because you're surrounded by
put into, you might have been like the pretty girl in your village or your town or whatever, and then you go in and you're like,
go to New York, and there's so many beautiful girls and so many young girls, and you get into, you know, you get thrown through the system, and then you go on all these go-sees all day long, and you did that, right?
my first ever time I met Carolina was at a
It's
go-see.
not true.
So true. I remember exactly.
I know you remember.
In a
but Mike, it's
studio
not.
in New York City, I sat down next to this girl who was wearing a gorgeous dress, and I was there with my book, and I looked at her and I smiled, and you kind of gave me a smile back, and then I was like, "Oh, I love your dress," and you went, "Huh." And I was like, "Right, well, I'm not going to say
You're like,
anything more to her then."
Okay, right. Oh, that's funny.
Oh, what is a go-see?
A go-see. So basically what go-sees are, you go and you meet with a client, you bring your book.
They flick through your pictures, they look you up and down.
And then they say
send you on
thank
your way.
They send you on your way. They take your card and they say thank you.
Yeah.
But for me was that I would go, and I knew that I wasn't the prettiest girl there, and I was like, I'm not the prettiest, so I had to sell my personality. So I would always kind of perform for people when I got to. That was like my thing. Aww. Yeah. And I swear to God, sometimes people hire me and they went, "Yeah, we hired you for your personality." I was like, "Okay, man."
I was still trying to find my personality at that point.
I was like, "Thank you very much." Yeah.
I think that was one of the biggest things in the transition into acting for me, was realizing that part of your job is to bring ideas and to be able to voice them and to ask questions, and, you know, and finding my, I don't know, confidence in doing that was like such a big learning curve, because I think for so many years it was like, you don't say anything.
Yeah.
You don't complain. You don't say a word.
Yeah.
You don't ask questions. You just sort of do what you're told.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing, my transition from modeling to acting was that I remember it was like my dirty little secret always. And my family was never supportive of the craft, because, you know, being an immigrant, we came in 92, and they had the vision of like lawyer, doctor, and that's a job, you know, anything other than that.
I can play a lawyer, a doctor.
I'm like, I can play a lawyer. But it wasn't, you know, it was a thing that wasn't celebrated. So I remember I always wanted, you know, I always loved acting. I was always, you know, entranced by the theater and film and consuming, you know, living in the 2000s in New York. I'm sure you went to like Sunshine and Angelica,
Yeah,
and like,
great.
you know, IFC, and then you had the Forum and all these different places where you saw all the indie films. And I used to consume film so much. I was just obsessed with cinema. I loved it so much. And something, you know, around 25, I remember I talked to the agent of the agency, and I said to him, "Hey, I want to try acting. I really want to, like, I want to give this a go." And he said, "Honey, like, you gotta like see if you can get a commercial or two. You can, like, you know, I don't know." And I saw him giving all these opportunities to all these models, right? But for some reason, not me. But I also was asking about, you know, different teachers to study, and I started studying with all these different teachers, and like my dream was to go to Juilliard. I'm like, I want to go to Juilliard, but I couldn't. You couldn't, because it's like, who's going to look after me? Who's going to pay, you know, the rent? And so that's a chip on my shoulder that I've always had.
Who did you study with in New York?
Oh my God, Harold Guskin. I did Greta Seacat. I did Ron Stetson, who was at the Neighborhood Playhouse. I mean, I've studied with everybody. I just was like, give me everybody, and I wanted the best of the best teachers that are out there. And so I started to like just consume, you know, all these different teachers and different techniques. And then I started booking all these commercials. And so then I'm like, okay, Scott, like,
Be a man of your word.
now?
Come on.
And then I remember they said, okay, there's this audition for a short film with Mike Figgis,
Oh, cool.
right? And
Yeah.
so I auditioned, I got it. And actually it was with Nick Kroll.
Wow.
And
No
that
way.
was like, yeah, and that was like
so
my
wild.
first acting job with Nick Kroll to do this like short film about New York. And I remember when I did that with that short, I was like, oh, this kid is going places because he's so funny. I was like, he's so special. But that's how it started. And then I moved to LA when I was in 2009. And that's when
But you
I started
always,
Crazy
you
Stupid
always
Love was my
worked
first job.
on
Oh, Law and
shows in
Order.
LA.
Yeah, but my first job in New York, when did you work on Law and Order in New York?
Nope.
That was the gig to get, because either you were doing theater or your Law and Order was like the only TV show that shot there during that time. So that was I was playing somebody's girlfriend, and anyway, so that was. But I mean, it's you've been part of that journey the whole time, which is amazing to have someone that is a witness.
I mean, we'd obviously known each other before, but when I came to LA and we like reconnected
In 2010.
in 2010, but you
at
were
Air
working
One on Beverly
all the
Boulevard.
time.
No, not then. Not
You
then.
were. I felt like you, out of our group, you were the one who was like, you would be on so many different shows, and you always seemed to get jobs that worked in LA. You did.
That's true. I did. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But we were always we were audition buddies. It was when the self-tape started.
Yes, and what's interesting is that you and I were never in the same class together. You had a different teacher here. I started studying with Nancy Banks, and you had a completely different teacher than I did, and those paths never crossed.
Judith Weston. Took me a second to
I know my memory. I'm trying to remember things like.
No, Judith changed. I mean, she was amazing. She changed sort of my whole approach to acting, I think. But
in what way?
she really kind of she's. I think she still does classes. She's this amazing teacher who directs not only actors but directors or people who've already been in the business and want to be directors. So her whole process and ethos is about getting everyone together, and she will have a director direct actors in a scene, and so you work on a scene together with another aspiring director.
Oh, that's cool.
And what it did was because I had been in other acting classes where it's just a bunch of actors and you're all there and you're all kind of like, oh, I just want to work and I want to do this thing. But like none of us had any knowledge outside of sort of the class. And this opened it up, and it sort of made it much more about how it is in real life. It's a team effort. You're creating with a bunch of people. It's not just about you as an actor. It's about what does a scene need, and what is the process of like this symbiosis between a group of people.
That's amazing.
Which I think was
But that's what it is.
so good. And it sort of, it took it off a pedestal for me.
And how did you so what made you transition? Obviously you always wanted to act. Your journey was that like obviously you went to school and then you're modeling, you're successful at it, and then what made you transition to acting? Like where you're like, okay, this is time where I need to do this.
I got to the point in New York where I think I was just really depressed and miserable. And I knew that I was not doing the thing that I always wanted
Your
to
soul
do.
didn't feel fulfilled.
No, I was so unfulfilled. I was really, I think I was really frustrated and quite depressed. And
You're like really depressed.
I was really depressed. But I was about to, I was like 28, 29.
We're a similar age, yeah.
Well, I was older, and I decided I took a few classes in New York, which were like drop-in classes, Black Nexus, Susan Paxton used to do.
Yes, of course.
And then I did another course at like New York Film Academy, and I was like, okay, I still love it.
Yeah.
I still think I can do it. But I was looking at 30 approaching, and I was like, if I don't change my life now, I'll never do it, and I'll regret it forever. And so I don't know, I was dating someone at the time who lived in LA, and I was like, I'm just going to move to LA. And I did, and I moved to LA and started the stamping of the pavements,
Well, I
going to
remember
all the auditions.
I remember the first job you got, which was you went to
Super
like
8.
Super 8 was
no.
one. It was before
No.
that. It was the
H+.
series. H+.
Oh my God, that was the best job ever.
Yes,
I got to go to Chile
remember.
for a
That's
month.
what it was, and I remember we went to Chile, and I was like, "Whoa, you going to Chile? That's so cool!" And
I mean, it
remember
was when
watching it.
people thought web series were going to be a thing.
Oh, that's right.
like-
Yes.
Warner Brothers
That's
had a whole
right.
division.
Yeah,
that
I
they were
remember that.
they were going to invest loads of money in web series.
And I remember when we went to all of us. It was a group of us went to see Super 8.
Yeah,
And your face on the big screen, and it's like those moments are so sweet. Like, you know, looking back on it, how much they all meant and how excited everything was. You know, I'm not saying that it is nothing, and I'm not saying that things are not now. They are, but there was just something so pure about it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I
it's like
think
those
those
beginning
early
joys.
days, we
Yeah.
were, you know, you and I think you were such a good, I mean, you were such a good friend at that time because you were working so much and you were so generous with your advice. And like, I know I would come over to you to tape auditions and the drama that would be, I mean, we would tape each other a lot, but it was one of those things where it was like,
we got to
you-
tell them the stories. It's like, it's the best.
I mean,
it's
the
so-
stories are that we used to spend hours and hours taping auditions that were probably like 4 lines. And then there would be, you know, the mental breakdown, the crying.
I'm a terrible actor. I can't do this.
No,
But
you can do it. You can
what's
do
the
it. Come on, you
backstory?
can do it.
Where's this actor coming from? What is the reason that they're here? Okay, what's the moment before? And it's like 4 lines.
I know.
It's
But we
like-
cared so much.
We did. That was the beautiful thing. We cared so much.
Yeah.
And we would talk about acting for hours and hours. And did you smoke then? I think we both smoked at the time.
I never smoked. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a little secret. But I remember just spending hours of just at your place or my place of just like talking about it and talking about plays and talking about the movies and actors that inspire us and how they did it or how like this, you know, dissect scenes that we saw them in and how they impacted us. And it was just so awesome to be so obsessive about something and love something so much
passionate
and
about
so
it.
deeply. Yeah. But I felt like it was truly like life and death. Do you know what I mean? Like our love for it, and we lived it and breathed it. Is that a right word? Breathed it.
Breathed it.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. I have like for our kid. I don't know if you feel that way about your kid, but I want that for my kids. I want them to love something so much that they're like, they have to consume it and talk about it, whatever that is. But like
Yeah.
have that passion for something so much.
Well, I feel like to have a sort of vocation or a passion, it sustains you through all of the low times.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and there were very dry spells for
Oh my God,
all of
yes.
us. But it's like you just know that this is the thing that you love.
And makes you get up. And
And it makes you get up and it makes you
trying.
work and it makes you go to the
Yeah.
classes and it makes you go to the auditions no matter how many times you get rejected.
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
But
And
even
then,
like I remember back then, even just getting the chance to audition and work on an audition
Yes.
and bring an audition into a room and at least present something that you've put yourself into
Yeah.
felt so fulfilling
Yeah.
compared to like what we had been doing.
Yeah. But I want to talk about Outlander. I remember I was there for all of it, and you know, and you know, you from the first audition that you had to the test, and I remember when you were going to the test, and we had those like you had 3 dresses, and I
I had
know
3 vintage dresses.
3 vintage
I was like, which
dresses.
one do I wear? Which one will I wear in this?
yeah, and I see that I'm not gonna cry, but I'm probably gonna cry. But I just remember you going and you coming back, and you know, you were just. I was like, how did it go? It was, I mean, there's a huge opportunity, and we knew how, you know, the success of the books and all this stuff, and I remember you coming back, and you're just so excited, and then, you know, I think you're gonna find out, and I was with you. See, I'm getting like when. I can't help it.
I believe you're getting emotional.
But it's like you're there and you're like, oh my God, somebody, like a PR person started following you.
Well, this was the thing. So
On
there was all like
Twitter.
before I found out I had the job, somebody from Stars started following me on
Following you,
Twitter,
and
and you
I
were
remember-
like, "That's it, you've got the job, you've got the
I
job." And I was like,
know.
"It doesn't mean that. I don't want to."
know, but it was just so amazing. And like, because I knew your life is about to change. And, you know, and then there's a part of me selfishly, I was devastated because, you know, you were literally on a plane like 2 days later and you had to pack up your life. And I'm like,
I remember you coming over to my apartment with balloons.
I know.
And then I was gone.
And then you were gone out of my life. And I was like, what happened? That was the hard part. And then, you know, watching the success and how, you know, how incredibly huge Outlander became, and watching you through the process has been I feel really honored to be part of that journey.
It's so wild to look back on it now. You know, obviously it's 13 years ago. But
Wow.
I remember the audition. I remember putting it on tape first and sort of sending it in, and it went away and I didn't hear anything. And then, of course, you book a trip, you get a job. So I booked a trip to India and I got called to go do this chemistry read. And it was just then such a whirlwind. But I think in a way, I'm so glad that, you know, we did the chemistry read. I found out I got the job maybe 4 or 5 days later. And then 4 days later, I was in Scotland.
I know.
And I think not having any time to think about it helped me. I think, you know, the first things, it's like trying to figure out, well, what is the most helpful work I can do right at this moment that will help me in, you know, launch on this. And I've been given, I think, maybe 3 scripts, and I read those on the airplane over, and I found a book that was nurses' sort of testimonies from being in the Second World War. And I was like, okay, that's the starting point. Like, that's all I can do, because that's where we've left. That's the last place we've sort of left her. And this is her starting her life after that. So I sort of absorbed that book. And then luckily, like, that character is just sort of thrown into a mad world. So I was like, okay, well, that's kind of what my experience is at the moment. But it was such a learning curve. I remember, you know, I'm so grateful. I had the first 2 weeks were with Tobias, and Tobias was such a seasoned actor and had so much experience. And I remember just watching how he conducted himself in the meetings and watching the sort of questions he asked and all of those things. And I was like, okay, right, it's okay to ask that. It's okay to do that. And
of course.
just sort of, he set such a great bar. Also, he's such an incredible actor that it sort of just set a really good bar for everything and for what he was striving for. And I don't know, I think with Claire, I think sometimes, you know, luck and fate and hard work can meet at a point. And I think I put in the years of hard work, you know, trying to hone my craft and all of that. And then I think just Claire, you know, getting that role at that time, it just worked. Like, I remember the first day of filming being so terrified walking onto set, because I'd never done TV before. I'd never like been on, you know, I'd done small parts in movies, and I know it's more or less the same thing, but there's a difference to the rhythm, there's a difference to the workload, to the speed of what they
of
move.
course. And the significance of that character for you, and you had to carry the show.
But I remember the first day, as soon as we started filming, it just sort of felt natural. And I was like,
so cool.
okay, I think I can trust this. Like, I think it's going to be okay. But then also, it was just that first year, the workload was insane. Like, we were doing
you worked
80, 85 hours a week, if not more. And we were doing 11-day fortnights for 6 months, but it was amazing. I mean, I talk about a baptism of fire and talk about learning on the job. You know, I learned everything. And it's so funny, like, now I look back and, you know, just how untechnical I was and how much I need, like, you know, for moments when it would be like emotional moments, you know, I didn't have the techniques. I didn't have that kind of easy route into those things. And so it would be so difficult in the beginning.
So what do you mean by that? It was difficult. You had to like
I had to work so hard to like get to those moments, and, you know,
So you feel like they come to you just super easily now?
Now it's like,
Do you feel because you're more open? Do you feel like you're
I think I'm just more relaxed and more confident, and
Accessible.
I know that I know it's there, so I know it'll come, and I don't
Yeah.
have to fight for it or push it. And I think when I was starting there, it would be like I'd need the music, I'd need the the mud, I'd like
I'm
have
like,
to
I still need that.
no, and like sometimes I do, but like not in the way I did then. It just, and it was just like getting
Do you
used
think
to
it's
everything.
confidence? It's just like you just 'cause
Yeah,
you,
I think it's like
just
having
confidence of, like,
hours of work
yeah,
under your
yeah.
belt, and like
It's like the 10,000 hours. Was it 10,000 hours?
10,000
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
and I'm sure I have that on Outlander. But it was so amazing. I mean, just getting to, I think the thing with Claire and getting to do the show, and also it's that thing of like every season when you go back, you have built a memory bank for like, I have 10 years worth of memories of Claire.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and in the beginning you used to sit and have to sort of write things out and build a memory bank and build all the memories that you wanted to infuse your work with. And now they're just there. Like I've lived it, I've experienced it. We did those scenes. So you're not having to build as much. The foundation is already there and it's already set. And I mean, you're going to find this when you go back on your second season. It's like there is so much work that you've already done that carries you into every
You're just
single
gonna
scene
be
that you
there,
do
yeah.
afterwards. And it's sort of, you build, it's layer upon layer. And that's the beauty of being on TV and like getting to live with a character for this long, is that you can really layer it over time, and it's sort of all of that goes with you, like it never goes away, that work that you've done.
Well, I remember when I came to visit you on set. I remember when I watched, there was a scene that I set it on, and I remember that I was watching, and I'm like, God, there's just such ease about you, and that you just felt so comfortable and so embodied. And
But that's being on that
great.
particular set. I mean, I always think the hardest job in TV is for a day player.
Oh my God, for
or somebody who's got to come in for like a couple of scenes. Like that's the hardest thing, because I walk on that set, you walk on, everybody.
Yeah.
You're walking on and you're like, hey, it's like,
And they got your back, and
they got your
yeah,
back,
yeah.
and you're used to the sets. Everything is comfortable and set up to put you at ease. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're walking on for the first time or just walking in for a few days, it's like none of that is easy for you, because everything's different.
But you're afraid that you don't want to get fired, right? It's like I feel like whenever I've been a guest where I'm like, I hope I won't get fired today. I hope I do a good job.
Yeah,
That was my experience, at least.
very important thing.
I won't forget when I was working on Sneaky Pete with Bryan Cranston. He actually, because it was his show, he sent out emails to all the people that are coming as guest stars, and he was like, I want you to feel comfortable.
Wow.
And feel like you can say, if your character needs something, please voice it, say it, because sometimes your ideas might be better than our ideas. Just the
Now I feel
experience.
shitty. I should have sent emails.
Just here to make you feel really bad right now. As
I
the
would
number
walk over and I would shake their hand and I would welcome them to set. But now I know I didn't do enough. I should have sent a bloody email. So do you want to talk about sort of, you were a regular guest star on so many shows, and now I'm very proud to say leading role in Pluribus, and it's such an amazing show.
Thank you, babe. I mean, let's go back to, because you're part of that journey.
Well, so talk about what they did.
Well, so which is so crazy. What I found out recently, we were doing this podcast, and so they searched my role, like all over the world, and they couldn't find my character, or they couldn't find Zosha. And Russell, they had to go back through their old cabinet with all handwritten
Notes on actors.
on every actor that ever auditioned for them. And they used to audition for them a lot. And Russell was going through the papers, and he saw my photo, and he went, wait a second, whatever happened to this one? How crazy is that? You know what I mean? Like, how wild.
Yeah, but what did they do? They reached out to
So then they contacted a commercial agent that I was on their roster, but I wasn't working with them. And so I got a request for an audition. It was during Christmas, right before Christmas, and I contacted personally Sherry and Sharon. I wrote them an email, and I said, hey, if there's anything you guys need, let me know. And it was January 3rd. We were on vacation in Mexico.
We were.
And we were having a great time. And it was such a special time. And I remember I think I was in the bedroom. I got the call from Russell, and I ran out, and I was like, they want to test me. Oh, freaking out. And I remember you're like, okay, we got to, let me talk to Brian.
Well, because they wanted to test you, right?
Yeah. And so,
but at the time, you didn't have a manager or an agent to like deal with this. And it's like, as an actor, you can't really be...
You can't make a deal without having... I mean, you could, but you don't want to.
You don't want to be the person dealing with it on your own behalf, because there's things that casting need to say, or the way things go.
Things need to be put together.
Yeah.
But I remember, so Brian...
And I was like, let me call my manager, and I'll ask him if he will do this for you, because he's an awesome guy, and he would be happy to.
Yes.
And he did. He helped facilitate the
whole thing. He introduced me to
the audition.
A lawyer. Yeah, he introduced me to David Matloff, and then were we together at the time too when I made the deal? I think we were still on vacation when they called me, and they were like, okay, so...
I think so, because it was pretty soon after we got back that you were going to go in and test.
But that's when I learned the significance of the character, because I didn't even read the scripts at that point yet, and the significance of who Zosha is.
I also remember this is a woman who really adheres to an NDA. You wouldn't tell me anything.
That's true.
I was like, come on, I'm not going to know. I'm not going to tell anybody. You're like, nope, not saying a word. I was like,
so
Jesus,
scared. I was like, I don't want anything to happen. But anyway, so long story short, that
I mean, I adhere to them too. I always trust my NDAs, just FYI, if anyone's asking.
If anyone's asking, you're like, I'm really keep my mouth shut. But anyway, so getting the role has been like, it's been a life-changing experience, and just working with Vince Gilligan, who I admired so much, and then working with Ray, who's the most incredible scene partner and such a giving and generous actor, and that's...
How was it for you going back on set? After
terrifying.
Having a break for a while.
Terrifying for many reasons. I think terrifying because of who this character is. When you're like, oh, I'm playing a character that's billions of people, that can do anything, has all the information, the highest intelligence, has muscle memory of anything and everything. They're the greatest. Like, there's just so many incredible things, but like, how do you tackle that? And I think they're unflappable, and they're joyous, and they're content, and they're serene, but they're fully fledged human beings, and they're not robots.
But I think this is, because I'd love you to talk about
And we would laugh about it, because you knew who Zosha was, and you would laugh. You're like, how on earth?
Because you're such an emotional, you're a very passionate person. You're very emotional, and I would say that you're not exactly like this. So then for you to get a role that is playing somebody who is like that, and who is so even-keeled and emotionally
stable,
in check, let's say, it was amazing. I mean, it's an amazing challenge. I think that's such a challenge for any actor. It's a really hard thing to play, to sort of not react to things, because that's sort of the antithesis.
It's our natural nature.
Yeah.
It's going against our natural instincts. It's going against our natural way of being, where we always reciprocate. Action is reacting. But yeah, so there was challenges of like being nervous on set the first few days, and then not being able to normally be like, hey, give it to your character. Your character's nervous. And it's like, nope, not Zosha.
Character does not have any nerves.
She is not. There's not an ounce of nervousness. So that was, there were challenges, but like Vince would guide me through it, and
I loved during that time, like occasionally I get texts from you, and you'd be like, yeah, I got to go to rehearsals. I got to learn how to fly a plane. I'd be like, what? Be like, yeah, I'm just like learning how to use an excavator. I was like, what? I was like, what is happening?
What is
and you were
happening?
like, I can't tell you. I was like, oh my God.
But it was so much fun. Like, it was, to have to do all those things was so much fun. I mean, being on the helicopter, I've never been on a helicopter before. And
I mean, your role is incredible.
It's
you get to do so much in that show.
Yeah, I'm still trying to like pinch me. Is this real? Do you know what I mean? Everything that's been happening in the show, the reception of the show, how people have been enjoying the show, and it's just been really I'm just like blown away by it all. And you went through that too in Outlander. When you see that, you go, you hope for it, right? When people ask me, did you know it's going to be great? I'm like, I know Vince Gilligan is incredible. I know Ray is incredible. And I know the scripts were incredible, but you never know when it comes together, you know, how it's going to turn out. And also with such a wild story, you wonder, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Are people going to respond to it? Or, you know, you don't know how it's going to be perceived. Show. And it's been sweet is having people constantly come up to me that the way they process the show and how they're constantly saying how it's, you know, thought-provoking, but also people makes them think. Like you can't check out when you watch the show.
No, I mean, but the show is asking some huge questions, I think.
Some huge questions about
humanity.
And
it's lovely that it's not prescriptive. I love that he doesn't try and tell you what these things are. And I think so many people read so many different things into it.
Yeah. And people can have their own experience with it. And many people have different experience of the show, which is really awesome, you know? That's been very special. So it's been a wild journey, you know?
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, babe. You know, I'm very grateful for it, and I can't wait to go back. You got to come visit me, by the way.
I got to come
You got to come visit me. So I want to ask you about, you directed.
I did.
And I remember when you were doing that episode, and the best thing was when you did it, and how it was amazing to watch you through that time is how excited you were, like a little kid.
I was.
You were so excited to go to work, and you would come back so excited, and there was just it was a beautiful light to see you in, you know? Yeah.
Thank you.
So tell me about that experience.
Well, I think when you've been on a show for a long time, you need to keep challenging yourself, I think. And it was very important for me, like by season 4, I really wanted to learn more about the whole process, and I wanted to produce, and I wanted to see how those decisions are getting made and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So we were very lucky. We became producers in season 4, and it was really funny because they were like, we were like, all right, so we'll be at the production meeting. And they're like, oh, well, you don't really have to go. And I was like, no, I want to be in the production meeting. Yeah. I want to learn more, and that's why I want this. I don't want it just to be a title. I want to actually...
Were you surprised by things when you became a producer? Were you like, whoa, I didn't expect this?
A lot of stuff. I mean, because as actors, you're kept so out of the loop of things. It's like you show up on this day and you're here, and then you leave, and then you have no idea how, all of the decisions that are getting made in the background. And actually, I think it's quite... I think a lot of productions would find that actors would probably be an awful lot more accommodating
if they understood
if they understood part of the reasons why certain things happen. You know, there's always that thing of like, an actor will get to a stage and they'll be like, well, why is this like this? You know, I don't feel like my character would do this. And maybe it's for the simple reason that you can't shoot in that direction because there's this, or this. So it was just really fascinating to understand what all of the different departments were bringing. You know, these production meetings, you go through the script, every single production or every department's coming in with their needs or their kind of concerns or the things that they have to bring. And it was just fascinating. So that was sort of season 4. So it made
4. You also not to take things more personally and for...
Yeah, and like to be just more cognizant like of and more aware. The whole. Yeah. And I've always been interested in directing. I mean, I wanted to direct... you know, since I was...
That's true. I've always remember you wanting to direct.
Yeah. Like since I was even in secondary school, and we directed like some little plays and stuff in school. And so it's always been this thing. But I guess when I took so long out to model, and then you come back and it was so hard to just get a job as an actor, you sort of feel like, well, I've got this, you know, you don't even allow yourself that other... I don't know, desire, I guess, because you're just so grateful that you got to do the one thing.
Yeah. But I remember there was a short you wanted to direct.
Yeah.
Remember that? The Bukowski story?
Yeah. Still should, actually.
I think you should do that, yeah. It's a great story.
It is a great story. But, yeah, so then it was I wanted to direct. I sort of suggested it maybe a few times, maybe not that clearly, but I was definitely dropping hints. And then by season 6, I was sort of like, come on, guys, I would really love to, like, please, can I have this opportunity? And so season 7, I got to direct some, they're called Untolds, but they're like, you know, decent scenes that would maybe live within the episode, but they don't have time for them. So they're probably like 6-7 page scenes. And I got to do 4 of those. And that was really cool. And, you know, it was like, okay, I definitely love this and want to do more. And so for the episode, it was amazing. It was like being back at season 1 because you're learning so much. Your brain is just on fire because you're just, there's so many decisions to be made, but it's also exciting. And it's like, you know, you get brought these proposals for things, and, you know, the stuff that I thought would stress me out, you know, like we had originally it was a cougar attack in the script. And so you have to plan this whole cougar attack, and I did research on how cats kind of, you know, big cats, how they like stalk their prey and how they would attack and all of that. And then, like, I think it was like 4 days before filming or whatever, they're like, well, we can't get the cougars, so it's now going to be a bear and it's going to be CGI.
Oh, wow.
And you're like, okay.
So why can't they CGI a cougar?
Well, because I guess originally in the book it was a bear, but they thought they could get a real cougar.
Listen to me, I'm like, excuse me.
So then when they were going to CGI it anyway, I think they were like, well, we'll just go back to what was originally in the book. Yeah. But I was like, okay, but I've planned out all these shots and these animals attack in different ways, and they stalk, and, you know, they don't bears don't stalk, but like that was kind of exciting. So, you know, you're like, all right, we're going back to the location, going to rethink this whole shot, like what can we do, like where will it come from? And then you're working with the storyboard artists who are incredible. Like, it always excites me, like seeing what they do, and it's just like working with all of the departments in that way, where you kind of go to them with an idea and they're like, yeah, give us like 2 hours and we'll come back to you with something, and they come back with like these amazing options, and you're like, wow, okay, well, yeah, let's go with A. And it was amazing. Like, I loved every second of it.
As an actor today, stepping into the director's shoes and doing that, do you feel like it changed you as an actor?
Yes. I think, well, there's a couple of things you learn in the edit, especially. You're like, oh, so much of what you do can be changed. You know, I think I'm probably...
Meaning the performance? The
performance. So, you know, like a thought that you're having before you say something that you think is really important, and it can be very important, but sometimes they'll cut that.
Yeah.
Which changes the meaning of how you say something. So you realize, actually, as an actor, you have
But isn't it nice to have the option?
Of course. And an editor will always want the option.
Yeah.
But I'm just, I guess, in the final product, so much of what you do can be changed.
So
that was a big lesson. And so I think
it's
makes
less precious? Like when you do...
I think it makes me maybe try and have more clarity with the director about what it is they want, and then also explaining like what my thought process is. I think I'm just, in general, I'm less precious about things. I think I try to work with people who I trust and whose work I'm excited by, and in that way I know that I'm sort of facilitating their vision. At least I've been lucky the last, you know, few jobs that I've done, like that's how I've seen it. And so I'm bringing all of the work that I've done, and then I'm sort of giving it to them.
That's amazing. When I was in Spain and I got to listen in on Vince directing and working with the camera A operator, it was so, I got a bit of a bug of like, next season I want to be on set more to observe more, because watching their collaboration and setting up shots to tell a story, and the way they talked about to tell the story through the camera and the way it moves, definitely my mind went, oh wow, this is really incredible. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole the world of storytelling and how you tell the story and how you're going to shoot it to tell this particular story. It was
and I think Vince is somebody as well, like you can feel it when you're watching his his visual language is as much a part of the storytelling as anything else. Yeah.
Majorly. And he's very specific. And, you know, I remember he was like setting up a shot. He's like, okay, whose head are we in? Whose story are we telling? From what angle are we going to, I'm like, whose head are you in? What do you mean? And
that's amazing.
Yeah,
it's
it
so
was
funny.
really cool. I was like, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
What does it feel like now? So you've had this incredible 12, 13 years on the show, directing, producing, to say goodbye to it, and, you know, what does it mean for the future?
I think more than anything, I've had some time to sit with it. Obviously, you know, we wrapped about a year and a half ago. And I just feel like the most immense pride and gratitude.
Amazing.
Like I miss her in a way.
Yeah.
But I also, like, you know, I went and did this woo-woo kind of retreat where I sort of said thank you and goodbye to her and all of that kind of meditation and stuff. But
Listen, I'm all about it.
will you use a lot of woo-woo in your work?
I do. And because I love it so much. I love, you know, so I do dream work for my characters it came from Carl Jung, and the red book that Carl Jung wrote was all about dream work and then analyzing your dreams, and your subconscious talks to you through your dreams every night, and every character in your dream is you. And Sandra Seacat took that and used it for acting, and then Greta Seacat, her daughter, who I studied with, taught me the process. And for this role, I did a lot of dreams for Zosha with Gali Sami, who I work with. And I love this work because it's so, to me, it's really sacred and personal. You get to really, it takes a lot of trust in the subconscious, because sometimes you want to judge it and there's no judgment. Everybody that comes to you in your dream, so before you go to bed, you write a dream. You write it on a piece of paper, asking your subconscious for a dream. And it could be targeted to something specific, to, you know, it could be symbols, dynamics, or, you know, understanding the relationship with something else that you want within the dream, and you want the subconscious to reveal it to you. And whatever you dream, there's a whole ritual that goes with it. Once you dream, you write it down, you pick certain, you know, images that speak to you, or you can dialogue with the images. So that means you can talk to the images and ask them why they're there, why they came to you, the purpose of them in your dream, so they can teach you and make you more aware of whatever that is that they want to talk to you. And it's very personal, it's very deep, and you can use those images in the scenes, or you can draw the images out and then they just live inside you. And sometimes you get, you know, a dream will tell you, like, you know, this character it doesn't say it like that, but let's say there's a lot of meditation in the dream, and you're like, oh, I think I need to meditate. I think meditation is going to be key for this thing. And so you meet these characters in your dreams and these images that really make you, for me, it just make everything come to life. And you just trust it and let it go when you do the work, and it just lives there and percolates. And then it just, I don't know, I just find it very fascinating. To me, it's very sacred. And, you know,
but don't you think a lot of acting is opening yourself up to receive,
yeah,
you know, and to be a channel for a character to come through?
For sure.
And that's a lot.
It's very
what
much
that
so.
is.
But I think there is something special about when it's being subconsciously, because then you have the conscious, and what Carl Jung would say, 70% of you is subconscious. So think about that. So there's like so little of consciousness, where there's all this whole other world that's happening inside of you that you're not even conscious about. So tapping into that well of magic, let's say, and letting that live inside of you. And I think I've noticed there's a lot of actors that use dream work, and a lot of actors that I love use dream work. Jessie Buckley used dream work for Hamnet. You know, she went into that, and Emma Stone uses dream work. Ryan Gosling used to use that. And it's just like, I think there's something that you exude, comes out of you, that's not even I don't know, that it's just unspoken, and that's
Well, it's
the magic
not.
that I love. You know, it's really, it's really, and sometimes you get you know, in the dream you get a person, and you go, oh my God, that's the character, you know, and just like it just overtakes you. It's very fascinating. I just love it. You know, I love
think
it so
it's so
much.
cool.
I
I
think
remember
have you ever done it?
I did it actually. I remember because you used to teach me the thing that you would write out
Yeah, the dream.
the night before.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning of Outlander, I remember doing that and getting a dream of Claire sort of being in a trench or whatever, and
Oh yeah. Wow.
using that.
Yeah, it's really cool stuff, and you have to trust it because some people do, and they're like, "What is this?
Yeah.
I don't get it." And there is no judgment. You cannot judge anything about that work. You truly have to surrender and go into it and dive into it and be like, "Okay, I'm with you. I trust you, and let's go on this journey,"
Yeah.
which is really fun. Are there things that you do for your character? Because I always do, like, I have a playlist. Do you do playlists?
Do a lot of playlists.
I love my
Do
playlist.
scent sometimes.
Yes, scent. I do that too. Yeah.
Music's very important.
Music is, yeah.
I feel like now I do a lot of meditation.
Yeah.
And then
love
I do a lot of
meditation.
humming. Just so weird.
You do humming.
Like when I'm on
I
set
think
and
you told me
stuff.
that. You did that. I think you told me to
Keeps
hum
me
for
very
Zosha, I think.
calm,
Yeah.
and it makes me just very open
Yeah.
and calm, and it feels like it cancels out any noise in my head that is
But do you hum and people go, "What is that noise?"
probably, yeah.
They're like, "Jesus Christ." There goes
All the sound
Katrina.
guys are like, what the fuck? What is that? Where's that
Here
noise
goes
coming
Katrina
from?
again
And I'm like,
humming.
it's just a little hum to myself. No,
Just
but
a little-
it's a vibrational thing, I think, as well. And they also say that it's your central nervous system. Any kind of humming calms your vagus nerve, which I didn't know before, but it makes sense. So I just, like, anytime I get nervous, or if there's a scene that I need to be, like now, like if I need to be emotional or something, my goal is to make myself as calm and relaxed and just open as possible, and then you just let the scene affect you. Whereas before I used to have to be like, right, I'm gonna be crying in this, and you like, I've got to get into my depressing music, and like you're sort of almost
You're
there.
like, "Who died? Okay, let's kill somebody in my mind."
And I would have to like wrestle it, and I think now it's about doing as little as possible and allowing it to come.
Well, I feel like what I'm hearing is that you're saying, leave yourself alone.
Leave yourself alone,
And then, like, it's all there.
We're going to sound like such
I love it.
Hippie.
I'm all about it. Yes. Yes.
actor wankers.